Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere mai, and welcome to this week's episode of The Niche Cast. We are from The Niche Cage, theniche-cage.com, home of glorious Aotearoa sporting yarn and kōrero. Funky little show we got today. After a podcasting mishap earlier in the week, we're back. Had the throwdowns, we're coming back in form. We've had the shoulder pads on, running it straight at each other in preparation. And today we've got some, we'll get into the Warriors and some NRL later on. Warriors taking on the Panthers after their loss to the Roosters. We've also got Wellington Phoenix are in the finals of the A-League. Shout out to them. And they didn't need that draw or loss caveat. They had a win. Only a 1-0 win, that's all they do, but they had a win to get themselves into the finals. We'll also touch on some flying Kiwis doing amazing things around the world. We've got NZNBL, Rams are at the top of the table, Otago's doing all right, and we'll also touch on Wellington Saints, who have made a couple of changes. The Blackcaps, what happens when you play against a full-strength Pakistan team with a second-tier Blackcaps ODI team? You're going to lose, and that's what the Blackcaps did. But we will touch on a couple of bits and bobs from that Blackcaps series. Another funky show, and I am going to unleash some Kiwi-NRL notes to get us started here for a warm-up kōrero, because I've been lost in the Kiwi-NRL mangroves. There's so much fun stuff happening in the rugby league side of things that just, let's say, this isn't what happened, but let's say the podcasting mishap earlier in the week was me going walkabouts in the Kiwi-NRL mangroves. Just had to go walkabouts, enjoy the depths of Kiwi-NRL matters, and swing back around. But I've already done a nice big intro here, and I'm about to go for a couple minutes straight at least with these Kiwi-NRL notes. So I would welcome Nico the Wildcard to say something before I just go Burko.
Anything in particular to say, or any directives there? Or, I mean, I've been relatively deep in the mangroves myself on a few footballing matters over the past week. I've got written two Wellington Phoenix things, and I wrote a recap of their game and the fact they made the finals. I wrote a preview of the game on Friday against Adelaide, to the one of the best flying Kiwis roundups for probably ever. Like there was some like copious levels of goals, but also some great goals as well. And there has come big ramifications on a few, like, you know, Ben Wayne's team got promoted even though he didn't play. Still got to write some glowing words about that. Still got, like, I mean, some of the WSL stuff, the Women's Super League in England. We've got 4 teams in there competing against, trying to avoid relegation. 3 of them have a New Zealander. The 3 teams that have a New Zealander in their team all picked up points on the weekend, including 2 of them playing against each other in a draw. And the team that doesn't have a New Zealander, which is Reading, they lost to Manchester City, and they're now last on the table, sitting in the only relegation spot. So that worked out absolutely perfectly for that one. Hopefully that can maintain the rest of the way. Like, insane flying Kiwi stuff. And I'm working on a write up about the under-20s squad for the Men's World Cup that's coming up in about 20th, I think. It's about 2 weeks that it starts. So I don't know why they waited so long to name a squad, but we have that squad now, and it's rather interesting. I'll write about that as well. I've been pretty deep in their mangroves myself, but a different section of the mangroves, the footballing section. I don't think we ran into each other quite. Maybe if you set off a flare, I would have been able to see it, though.
You can't see flares from the other end of New Zealand, you know, like, we're in different corners of New Zealand, deep in the mangroves. There's so many mangroves in New Zealand. You can get lost in the mangroves and no one knows you're there, which is where I was. You're up in your little Whangarei mangroves. I'm in my Tamaki estuary mangroves, far away, not the furthest distance away, but different views, you know. Tamaki estuary, middle of Otara and Otago. You're up in the naughty north of Aotearoa, Whangarei, but I'm here to drop some rugby league knowledge. Too much of the waffle there. Let's crack on. Earlier in the season, I wondered if Dylan Brown was a better number 6 than Kalen Ponga. He is, and that's a beautiful thing for Dylan Brown. Also from Whangarei, Dylan Brown does have better stats. I think that's just part of him being in a better team, but he's in a better team and he's got a higher win percentage than Ponga. But Ponga right now, he's got that Queensland State of Origin performances, whereas Dylan Brown wasn't at his best at the World Cup. So a major defining or differentiating factor moving forward will be what Dylan Brown does for the Aotearoa Kiwis. Because in the NRL, week to week, he's a better tackler than Ponga, he's a better runner than Ponga, does his job in that Eels team, and they both debuted at 18 years old. So everything you think about Callum Ponga as a kid phenom, he made his debut at 18 years old. Dylan Brown also made his debut at 18 years old and looked comfortable in the NRL. Two other 18-year-olds are doing some things in the NRL as well. Two of the youngest halves, in fact, in the NRL. Isaiah Katoa and Karl Olowapu, they're both from Wellington. So just simmer that. Let that simmer for a second. The two youngest halves in the NRL are from Wellington. We are also nearing, might be this weekend, the debut of Keanu Kinney. He is a Northcote junior. He must be only 18 or 19 years old. He's fresh out of Palm Beach, Currumbin on the Gold Coast, moved from Auckland to chase that dream. First season of Queensland reserve grade footy. He's had 6 games, 5 wins, 1 try, 6 try assists, 4 line breaks, 22 tackle busts, 8 offloads, and for a little dude at fullback, first season against men, he's averaging 181 meters per game. Shout out to Kieran Foran, Ellerslie Jr., Isaac Liu, Otahuhu Jr. They're involved in the best Titans footy as well. When the Titans are winning, those dudes, Komato of Aotearoa Rugby League, they're performing well. Also had a Tigers win, best Tigers footy, involved Stafford Toa, Junior Tupou, Isaiah Papali'i, and Asu Kepa'oa. Also, Connolly Lemuelu, he scored tries for the Redcliffe Dolphins as an edge forward. What people need to know about Connolly Lemuelu is he went to Tangaroa College and he was a first 5. He was a number 10 in first 15 rugby. Then when he went to Kebra Park, he was a fullback. And he was the fullback in the Kebra Park High School team that had Payne Haas and David Fafita. Also Tana Boyd. But Kebra Park won the Queensland Schoolboys final with Connolly Lemuelu, their fullback, kicking a field goal. Now he's playing as an edge forward for the Redcliffe Dolphins, and he's pretty amazing. Shout out to some more playmakers, but specifically the Tangaroa College playmaker, Benaya Iowelu, because he's moved up from SG Ball to Roosters jersey flag, alongside Cassius Tia, who is a Marist junior who's playing in the halves. So he was playing Roosters SG Ball, now he's playing Roosters flag, which is under 21s. To showcase the depth, the Kiwi-NRL depth on display. We not only have the two youngest halves in the NRL from Wellington, we've also got 2 halves named Cassius playing under 21s footy. Cassius Tia from Marist, he's playing for the Roosters, and Cassius Cowley, I believe he's from Tokoroa, he is playing for Wynyard under 21s up in Queensland. Also, the Harold Matthews final, which I think is under 17s in New South Wales, had Bronson Rubin in the halves for the Bulldogs. He is from Christchurch, the northern regions of Canterbury. Christchurch, I think he's a Northern Bulldogs junior, so that's slightly north of Christchurch. He was playing in the halves for the Bulldogs. The Knights, they had Hami Loza, who I think is from Rotorua, but at some stage he moved up to Auckland, part of an exceptional De La Salle schoolboys team as well. Also, just want to shout out, wrote about Wiremu Greg this week. Wiremu Greg outplayed Leo Thompson in their Eels versus Titans matchup, which was cool. And, I've got to say like a lot in this one because I'm like, damn, holy guacamole, this is crazy. Because I haven't even got to the best thing yet. Tavita Henare Schuster. He was playing in that Roosters jersey flag team. Second game, basically in rugby league because he moved over from rugby union in Wellington. He went to Palmerston North Boys High School and he played for Kia Toa, which I think is a rugby union club in Palmerston North in the Manawatu region. And he was part of the Hurricanes under-20s team. Then he signed by the Roosters. Second game, 3 tries. First try, massive left foot step. Second try, amazing instincts to pounce on a grubber from Cassius Tia, and Benaya Iowelu passed him the ball from dummy half. Henare Schuster pounced on the grubber. Third try, it looked like he was playing fullback, gets the ball, short ball off the ruck, and just runs through the middle of their defense. So he looks all right. There you go. Just like so much Kiwi-NRL funk there that I've got myself dizzy.
And this is just great stuff as well. I'm sure we could wind you up and let you go about some like New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup and the various stuff as well. But I don't know. Should we do some mindfulness?
Well, let's pick up the Patreon whānau first. Pick up the Patreon
Yeah,
whānau.
let's do that first.
Everyone's supporting the Niche Cage via Patreon. Patreon is the best way to support us directly, straight up the guts. Patreon.com/El Niche Cage, EL Niche Cage. You can donate whatever you feel like. It all amounts to something, supports us out a lot. And we drop an extra podcast there every week as well. Not this week because we couldn't record earlier in the week, but we'll swing back around. Shout out to the email newsletter as well via Substack, thenichecage.substack.com. That comes out every Monday and Friday. And basically everything I've said in that Kiwi-NRL opening rant has featured in those email newsletters at some point over the last month or so. So there's always a lot of good information in the email newsletter dispatches via Substack. All you need to do, sign up, enter your email address. Then you get the bonus information that we write specifically for those email newsletters every Monday and Friday. You also get all the links to the website. All the podcast links are there. It's just the Niche Cage sent straight to you. And of course, the niche-cage.com is the website ting. Now we can get into mindfulness. What do you got?
Sharon Salzberg, quote, "Attention is the secret ingredient to compassion and awareness," end quote.
You're not meaning like the seeking attention, or there's a big thing about
what's the not the sort of self-glorifying attention, like give me attention sort of perspective, more paying attention rather than receiving attention, giving rather than taking,
which is a bit more empathy, a bit more awareness, culminating in paying attention.
Yeah, it's really funny how much more you can get out of stuff just by like paying a little bit more attention, like just not letting things pass by, like actually just even it's not about like I have to have an opinion on everything either. It's just simply like acknowledge, accept, understand, and then you find your where are we? Then you find your compassion and awareness. It's quite a because it's one of them things where it's like we want to be mindful and awareness and have awareness in our lives. Like we want to have that. We want to have compassion for other beings and whatever. Like we know that these are the end goals. It's crazy how easy that like the old secret ingredient, like just sometimes all it takes is just like, because it's the other thing about paying attention is it's effectively making an effort. Like it's an example of making an effort. Sometimes you just have to put in a little bit of work to do that stuff, but it's not hard to pay attention. It's just a matter of having a level of focus and intent. Otherwise, as I say, just like things pass you by and you get nothing from them, sort of thing. Nor do you offer anything to them in return, because that's arguably more important.
Let us pay attention to the Blackcaps,
Yeah.
who have been I've been struggling against Pakistan, but as I said earlier in the podcast, like that is to be expected. Like everything that you're seeing with the Blackcaps right now should be expected. This is a very good Pakistan team against a second-tier Blackcaps team. This is what will usually happen. Same with the Warriors. If the Warriors are playing 3 games in a row against the Storm, Roosters, and Panthers, what is the most realistic situation? What is the most realistic result? Probably 3 losses. Like that's just been straight up. And if you're taking a second-tier Blackcaps team to play a good Pakistan team in Pakistan, you might get swept. And it's already been a sweep, and there's 2 games to play. And given what we know about dead rubber kind of series games, the Blackcaps will probably win those, and it'll be all good. Daryl Mitchell's got 2 centuries. He scored 2 centuries in the first 2 games. Other batters to register a 50-plus score: Tom Blundell, Tom Latham, Will Young, and Chad Bowes. Maybe one of them is a first 11 cricketer. 2 of them, Daryl Mitchell and Tom Blundell. They're first 11 ODI cricketers, so 3 second 11 players scored 50s. That's right. I get the same vibe with the bowling as I got from that series in India, where I think it's easiest to score runs. So you got blokes scoring runs, and shout out, but like they're doing it overseas, which is also impressive. But if you like, I don't think you're going to bowl out Pakistan with Adam Milne, Matt Henry, Cole McCowatt, Blair Tickner, Ish Sodhi, Ravindra, and Henry Shipley. Because what happened in India against the top tier Indian batting unit, those development seamers got tonked around. And they're not necessarily being tonked here, but there is some tonking going on because there's a lot of runs being scored by both teams. And the full-strength Blackcaps team that toured Pakistan earlier this year, they could bowl Pakistan out. Just with how they were building pressure, the bowling options, the combinations like Santner and Sodhi, having some Lockie Ferguson, having some Matt Henry, Tim Southey. Like that is a good Blackcaps ODI bowling unit, and they can take 10 wickets against Pakistan or India in those conditions. Not every game, but they can do it. I don't think this bowling attack can do it, and that's all good because it's a second-tier bowling unit. The busiest bowlers have been Ish Sodhi, 30 overs in 3 games. Matt Henry, 29.2 overs. They are the only bowlers to bowl more than 20 overs. Henry Shipley bowled 20 overs in 2 games. But there you go. Ish Sodhi's on the fringe of the first 11 ODI team. The 2 best bowlers in that team have bowled the most overs. Before I throw it to you, I would like to highlight Mark Chapman, hero of the T20 International Series. Why isn't he in the World Cup frame? Why isn't he playing more ODI cricket? So far, he's got 29 runs and an average of 9.6 and a strike rate of 76, which is notably lower than the other batters. Unfortunately for Chapman, he's taken a step backwards after the heroics of the T20 series. What tickles your fancy the most about those notes there?
Well, have you got those stats in front of you? Can I ask you what Henry Nicholls has done so far this tour as well?
27 runs at average of 27. So he's got a couple of not outs, so he does have a better average.
Right.
The glorious...
But also hasn't scored runs. But if you're getting not outs, it means you're batting at the end of the innings. We don't really get an opportunity. Because he's coming in after Chapman. He did this morning anyway.
He's got a big old 20 not out, so be fair.
Well, that's the highest score than Chapman's got so far. The weird thing about this squad and these 11s that they're rolling out, because they are rotating the bowlers a little bit, which you got to do, apart from, as you mentioned, the two guys who will be in the World Cup squad that we know for sure, which are of these bowlers, which are Henry and Sodhi. Whether they're playing, I think they probably will be both playing in the first 11 because it's the World Cup's going to be in India. But Sodi's obviously in and out depending on whether they want two spinners or not, because Santner is ahead of him in the ODI queue, which is understandable because Santner is a brilliant ODI bowler. And Sodi's very good himself and has been good this tour, but I think he's had trouble having to bowl through the middle overs where there's someone at the other end releasing the pressure. And therefore, I think his RPO's been quite good, hasn't it? But the wickets haven't really been there because he's sort of, I don't know. And that also has been an issue that I've noticed from Milne and Henry in particular bowling at the top, which is that they're bowling well in those opening overs, but they're not taking wickets. And without getting early wickets, it just seems like the pressure gets passed along to the third, fourth, and fifth bowlers who aren't necessarily capable, because we've seen a lot of Ravindra overs and we got some McConkey overs in this one. And the bowling lineup, and Nisham as well, has bowled a little bit in the two games he played. The bowling lineup clearly isn't good enough to beat a really good Pakistani team who I think have like 3 or 4 players in the top 10 ODI rankings. They're extremely good. And we're not really picking a team that's maybe the best balance, because I think they're trying to, that's the interesting thing, is the pressure's on the bowlers because they're picking a part-timer in their top 5 every time. Like, you clearly could just pick an extra bowler, but they also seem to be picking both Chapman and Nicholls, where in a proper environment, I think you'd only pick one of those, but I think they've got both because they're trying to audition each of them. And I think more likely than not, neither of them make a World Cup. But Nicholls might sneak into the squad, but I don't think either of them are playing too many games. Certainly not in that spot. Once you start recalling, like, when Glenn Phillips is available again, he's ahead of both of those guys, and Will Young is ahead of both of them and is batting higher in the order and had 1 or 2 scores, hasn't he, in this so far? And Michael Bracewell will come back into contention. And actually, Cole McConkey did get, what did he get? Like 1 for 40 something in this one. The third game, he got
4.6
1 for 46 with the ball. Yeah, with the best RPO in the team, bowled all 10 of his overs, and then he smacked 64 not out of 45 deliveries with the bat. That's more interesting than anything that Chapman or Nicholls have done so far with the bats. And the fact that he's bowling as well and is a useful off spinner. I mean, that it's probably too late to say, can he take Michael Bracewell's spot? And I don't think he should, because Bracewell has done very good things in ODI cricket as well. But it is definitely, I think maybe we've underestimated him just as another contender for that, like, spin bowling, lower order hitting guy, along with Ravindra has been getting opportunities. Chapman hasn't bowled at all, has he? So that's a curious factor, because that might have been one. But Phillips isn't as good a bowler as any of those other ones, but he can get through a couple of overs. So similar thing, probably more of a top order dude. But there's an interesting little thing there, because you've pointed out a couple of times they're definitely trying to pivot towards a spin bowling all rounder in the middle order, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's McConkey versus Ravindra, because Ravindra has he's going for 7.3. So instead of Santner Sodhi, you've got Ravindra Sodhi, and Ravindra's conceding over 7 runs and over. So he's not doing Santner's job. But I think this is more an example of the middle class of Kiwi cricketers, because, like, McConkey, he's challenging Ravindra for the spot below Bracewell.
Yeah.
The spot in the spin ranks. So it's like, I'd say Santner number 1, Sodhi number 2, Bracewell number 3 as an all-rounder, and then it's McConkey and Ravindra. Who do you trust more? I'm going to trust the older dude who is more experienced and more mature. Nothing negative about Ravindra there. Ravindra's fantastic. He's a talented cricketer. But for performing in international cricket, I'm personally going to trust McConkey, or that type of cricketer, over the young cricketer. And McConkey is an excellent fielder. He's a captain of Canterbury. He's a team first dude. He's going to do whatever he can do for the team. Again, nothing against Ravindra, but this is McConkey's profile. He's won shit with Canterbury. He's their captain. He seems to take some of his opportunities for the Blackcaps. Like, he's played a few games now. He toured that Bangladesh He was part of that Bangladesh tour a few years ago. So he, if there's an issue with one of the spinners up top, he might come into the equation for the squad. And it's up to him. If he keeps performing and Ravindra doesn't, Ravindra's got 29 runs, or 9 runs, sorry. He's only batted once, but he got 9 off 9. So that's all right, but not as good as McConchy. That's just an interesting thing. The other thing just to throw up is the quality of batting. Daryl Mitchell, he's averaging over 50 in test batting, 44 in ODI batting. Both of those are significantly higher than his first class and list A averages, so he's better in international cricket. Will Young scored a lot of ODI runs against kind of mediocre opposition, but he's doing his thing. Tom Latham's pretty good, but Devon Conway, let's update that shenanigans. He now has the third highest T20 batting average ever. The highest T20 batting average right now, as of Thursday the 4th of May, of current T20 batters. 44.41, Babar Azam is 44.02, Rizwan is 43.95. So Devon Conway has the third highest T20 batting average ever, the highest T20 batting average right now, and he averages over 44 in all 6 formats of cricket. So when we're thinking about the ODI World Cup and we're thinking about no Kane Williamson, well, Devon Conway may be one of the best batters in the world right now. And I'm happy to have him as like the best batter for the Blackcaps heading into a World Cup. Like, no Kane Williamson's a bummer, but we've got D Conway, and that's pretty good as well. So pretty chuffed with Conway, tracking his T20 average for sure throughout the IPL. You got anything quick to add there, or should let's move it on?
Well, one idea that did pop in my head while you're describing Cole McConkey there was like the like listing the attributes that he brings to a Black Caps team. The experience at first class level, the runs at first class level, the leadership as a captain, the fact he's won a lot of trophies in the various formats, good fielder, can bowl some tidy off spin. That could have been like swap Canterbury for Wellington, and that could have been the exact profile we were talking about when Michael Bracewell first got into the Blackcaps as well, which I thought was an interesting parallel considering we're looking at a very similar spot in the thing. Like, he's effectively auditioning to be the guy who subs in for Bracewell when needed, and they've kind of just got a guy with the exact same like attributes that Bracewell offers. A little obviously different in terms of I mean, you got the right left-handed bat thing and the different styles of play within that, but with the broad strokes, very, very similar kind of profiles of cricketers to be called up at that time in their career.
And it's like, I see how people are like, oh, but they're old dudes who haven't done anything. Yeah, but they're also role players who are good blokes. And when you want a role player, you just want a no-fuss bloke to do his job. And they are all like, we're coming from like these backup spinny type of roles. Like, for some reason, Bruce Martin popped in my head. And it's like, now we've got the captains of domestic teams are pretty good spinners, pretty good batters. They're good blokes. They'll do anything the team requires. They're ready to go and step in. So love it. I don't know how Bruce Martin actually applied to that, but for some reason, as you're talking through that, I'm like, we've come a long way from Bruce Martin, you know, like we're doing some
I'd have gone with a Mark Craig myself.
Same thing. Yeah, there you go. Shout out to them. NZNBL. Let's just touch on a few things here. Canterbury Rams keep winning, and I'm just curious, wildcard, is Ty Wynyard still in action? Because you broke his groundbreaking 3x3 deal. You're a big fan of 3x3. I couldn't care less, but
it is only in the international level.
Does seem like a notable thing. Is Ty Wynyard playing? Is he not playing? Canterbury Rams are first, 4-1. They've played an extra game than Otago, who are 4-0. Is the Wynyard thing, like, is that going to impact games moving forward? Is he not leaving for a while? Is he kind of Because it feels like Canterbury's season might hinge on when Wynyard leaves or what happens there.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I just know that the way it was presented when he signed the deal was it made it sound like, okay, he's leaving. He's not going to finish the season. Certainly, I don't know exactly when. I mean, I assume he'll just play up until the point when he leaves. You obviously want to be fit for your next opportunity. So keep getting the reps in. But they have played one game since that was announced that he was moving to China to make a lot of money playing 3x3. And he played. Rams won. He top scored for them with 28 points, got the most rebounds for them with 12 of those as well. So, I mean, there will, I assume, come a time in the near future where that becomes a bit of a pertinent issue of how do you make up the loss of Wynyard. But in the meantime, if they can squeeze a couple more games out of him, try to get a couple more victories on the board and set themselves up, wouldn't go astray because he has had a very good start to the season for them.
Yeah, and the reason it's so interesting is it seems like he's the best player on the best team. And if that's the case, like his availability will obviously be fascinating throughout the season. Also got the Otago Nuggets, who are undefeated, so maybe they are the best team because they haven't lost a game yet. And when I'm checking in on Otago Nuggets, when I'm watching them, when I'm checking their stats, the name Sam Timmins just always pops out at me as an interesting geezer because he was on the Breakers roster last season. You told me pre-show that he is now off contract. So I'm not like, because I was kind of viewing it through the lens like, Sam Timmins, he was on the bench for the Breakers and he didn't get much game time. Now he's dominating for the Otago Nuggets and maybe he's going to help the Breakers, but he might not be helping the Breakers. He might be putting himself in the shop window for a different Aussie NBL team, but he is playing decent minutes. He's playing 30 minutes a game. He's one of 4 Otago Nuggets to be playing 30 minutes or more per game. They are undefeated, and Sam Timmins is doing things there.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he played their most recent game, which they won 90-83 against the Nelson Giants, which keeps them undefeated. The Nuggets are 4-0. Like they're not just near the top of the table. They're the only team yet so far left who has not lost a game with the old fixture list there for Otago. So a little bit lucky in terms of how they might still be the last undefeated team, but also, they've beaten what's in front of them, and Sam Timmins has been a pretty important player for them during all of that. And Sam Timmins going to get rebounds no matter who they're playing against. He's a big dude. He's competing for a new contract in the NBL. Like that's what we want to see, isn't it? It's like the top teams with influential Kiwi players within there, and he's definitely one to keep a close eye on, especially over this next like month or so of Otago Nuggets basketball. We really get to see like how legitimate of a title contender they are because as I say, there's some tough games coming up, and they're going to need, for example, Sam Timmins to be pretty good in those.
So the Canterbury Rams and Otago Nuggets are at the top of the NBL ladder, which is pretty amazing for like New Zealand basketball. The best teams are from Canterbury and Otago, but all the NBL stuff, there is a treatment of the Wellington Saints as one of the big donnies of NBL basketball. When the Wellington Saints are underperforming, questions are asked and all this other stuff. I lean the other way. I embrace the teams who are performing well. And it's amazing. Like the top 4, Southland, Tuatara from Auckland, Otago and Canterbury. That's a pretty funky mix of NBL leaders. But there have been some changes in the Wellington Saints recently. Isaiah Moriahuhu Leafa comes in. We're a big fan of Isaiah Leafa at the Breakers and when he was with Southeast Melbourne, so it's great to see him back in the mix. What are some other changes you've been seeing with the Wellington Saints as they try and fix up their 1-3 start? Big up the Nelson Giants. They are 0-5 as well.
Yeah. And I believe the Nelson Giants are Wellington's 1 win, isn't it? So because they'd lost, was it 3 in a row? Yeah, they've only played 4 games. So they'd lost 3 in a row and then they made a couple changes and then smoked the Giants, put 118 points on them. And Leafa played and only scored 10 points. I think but all their starters got 10 plus. I think a couple of things there. One of them is this fella Mucius. Let me check what the bro's first name is. I think he might be another Isaiah, right? Bloody looking on the wrong thing. Anyway, he's coming in as an import, like an American dude, decent college profile, boosting things. Yeah, Isaiah Mucius. He's coming to help things out. I think Liafa, from what I read, was going to join them later in the season. Like he'd agreed to play for them this year. He had other off-season plans. I think there was something in one of the articles about how he was going to he's got a wedding to go. Obviously he's one of those guys who had a long college career, so there are plenty of connections over there, plenty of mates in the States. But he came in ahead of schedule, so they're trying to get a few games in early with him to try help things out after just a shocking start to the season. Defensively, in particular, really bad defensively, and he is someone who comes in as a guy who can instantly help. That is like a really good on-ball defender, guards some of the top options in the NBL. Massive boost. I'm guessing this Mucius fella will be pretty handy as well defensively because that's exactly what they're looking for. And I think also one of their other imports, Carl Adnam, the Aussie guard, he had been struggling through a bit of an injury for the start of the season as well. So that was another factor of why maybe their slow start wasn't as representative of who they are and what they will be by the end of the season. And it's certainly not too late. It's very early days. Like it's certainly plenty of time to turn things around. They've made a couple big signings. They should be pretty handy. I mean, you've got like Tom Vodanovich is there, Toe Smith Milner's there, Kenneth Tuffin's always been pretty handy at this level. Like, it's a good team. And I do expect them to still be pushed, particularly like, certainly for finals, if not for a championship contending thing. I will just say, like, they didn't win it last year either. Believe the Otago Nuggets are defending champions, actually. So there's a nice bit of pedigree there from the Nuggets being 4-0, having actually been defending champs. So I should put that level of respect on their name as well. But do you remember the Saints last year had the MVP of the league? That was Xavier Cooks. Xavier Cooks obviously isn't there anymore because he's an NBA player now. So there's like, it's worth considering that as well when you're looking at the Saints things. Like they don't have the best player from last year who was clearly someone who can paper over pretty much every crack in their team. So they may be a little bit exposed to start the season by injuries, by not having Cooks, by guys not initially intending to join them as for the start. Like Saints will be all right. It's just a matter of how all right. Like, will these changes boost them up to the level of where they're challenging for the title at the end of the year? They will be hoping so. We'll just kind of sit back and see how that one goes, you know?
We just quickly, let's roll through these flying Kiwis, but quickly because we do need to preview the Wellington Phoenix versus Adelaide United on Friday night. Yes. We've also got Warriors versus Panthers, so we want to touch on those more in depth than we've got with these flying Kiwis, but we do have a sneaky pocket of flying Kiwis absolutely on fire. Callum McCowatt and Max Mata are scoring goals, which is awesome to see, especially when you think about some of the creative flair that is missing from the All Whites. Well, as long as blokes are scoring goals, setting up goals overseas, that is fantastic. We've got a lot of clips of Callum McCowatt and Max Mata doing wonderful attacking things. Females, we've got CJ Bott and Jacqui Hand also doing a lot of good attacking things. When we think about what the football ferns lack and what the football ferns need, Jacqui Hand and CJ Bott, at the very least, they are doing some goal-scoring things, which is an intriguing wrinkle ahead of the season. This is a hot pocket. We never really had. Do we have hot pockets in New Zealand? I've just heard them referenced from like overseas audiences, but don't think we've had the old hot pocket. We got the toppers. This is a hot topper of the Flying Kiwis realms. What do you want to just elaborate on some of their club situations to dive into these Flying Kiwis? Callum McCowatt. Where are these people from in New Zealand? Callum McCowatt's from?
He is assume a Wellingtonian. I'm not actually 100% sure on that, but he's Ole Academy, so I'm guessing he's bulk of his time in Wellington. I think he's from Wellington though.
CJ Bott.
Who else do we have? Max Mutter is from Auckland. CJ Bott is also a Wellingtonian, and Jacqui Hand is an Aucklander.
What are they up to overseas?
Callum McCowatt, second tier in Denmark with FC Helsingør, where he's been for a while. Had a few Kiwi teammates over the years as well. There, Dalton Wilkins was there. Elijah Just was there. Nando Heineke passed through. McCowatt's the only one still there, and they're not getting promoted this year. I'm guessing it's not officially mathematically over, but they've dropped too many points. But he has been actually, interestingly enough, moved to midfield recently. He's usually playing as a winger for that team. And, you know, he was a winger when he played for the Phoenix. He was a winger when he played for, usually for the All Whites, and when he played for Eastern Suburbs before that. But he's been playing midfield. It's generally an attacking midfielder, but not a number 10, a little bit deeper than that. And he's just, since they did that, he's gone to a new level for them. He's scored in 4 consecutive games now from midfield, 5 goals in 4 games. He's been getting assists in that time as well. He's been really influential, just the best run of club form in his career since he's moved overseas. And I don't think, it's not going to be enough to get his team promoted, but it's certainly should be enough to at least get some scouts paying close attention from divisions higher up, like, for example, the one higher up in Denmark, the Danish Superliga, where we've already got Joe Bell playing in and out of their team because Brøndby's a bit weird at the moment. We used to have Marko Stamenic playing, but he doesn't play now because he's told them he's leaving, and now he just sits on the bench. But with a good attitude and preparing to sign for the best team in Serbia. So that's all good. That's going to work out. Elijah Just is in his best little run of form since moving to Horsens from Helsingør. Someone's going to be paying attention to what Callum McCowatt's doing. So if he doesn't get the organic way via promotion, he should be able to get a nice transfer upwards somewhere else. And that's the case with a lot of these players that we're talking about. It's the same with Max Mata, top scorer in the Irish League with Sligo Rovers. He has 9 goals already. Hits 3 ahead of anyone else in the entire competition. This is the top flight in Ireland, but it's probably about equivalent to like League One in England. And I say that because a lot of the top players in the Irish League of Ireland, as they call it, Premier Division, go on to sign for League One clubs. Like, for example, the guy who top scored for Sligo Rovers last year, a fella called Aidan Keena, went and signed with, I think it was Cheltenham. They also sold their top goalkeeper from last year midway through the season to an English League One club. That's clearly that's the next step for a player at that level. Mata's doing all he can to set himself up for that next step as well. Jacqui Hand, same deal. She's playing for Ireland United in the Finland. I was going to say in Finland. It's not in Finland. It's an island off of Finland. That's like an independent territory, but they play in the Finnish division. So she had a game on the weekend. The first 2 games, they've moved her up to play striker this season. She's usually a midfielder or a wide player. More wide player than anything else. But she's playing as a centre forward this year. First 2 games, they lost 2-1 both times. She scored in one of those games. She was their best, most influential attacker in both of those games, but they lost. This week, they played against the bottom team of the table, another team who had lost their first 2 games, but by a lot more. Good opportunity to really cash in. That's exactly what Jacqui Hand did. They won 5-0. She scored 2 goals. She got 2 assists, taking corners as well. Both assists from corners, which was interesting. Could have been more. Could have been 4 assists from corners. They all look dangerous. Again, not the highest league going around, even in the women's side there, but their top scorer, their best striker from last season, just signed with Celtic and is now playing with Olivia Chance over there. Very clear pathways to if you do well in these leagues, and Jacqui Hand is doing very well. It's early days in her season. There's only been 3 games, but she's doing very well so far. There is a pathway there as well. Like, all 3 of those players scoring goals, doing exciting attacking things, and setting themselves up to make the next moves in their careers. Jacqui Hand as well also has a very big bonus of she's pushing for a starting spot at the World Cup with the Football Ferns. That is another massive spotlight if you're trying to get a transfer to somewhere bigger as well. So that's all beautiful. CJ Bott's a little bit of an exception. She's definitely one of the informed players right now, but she is obviously, a right back, so she's not chipping in with the goals and assists like these other ones. and also she's in one of the top leagues already. But she's playing for a relegation threatened team in one of the top leagues, so there's room to go there as well. Leicester have been really good since the turn of the year, having lost their first 9 games in a row. So she's been pretty influential in their turnaround. The new manager has also helped a lot, and they had a massive win on the weekend. They turned up and they smoked Liverpool 4-0. Like the bottom team on the table smoked Liverpool 4-0. Liverpool about a mid-table team. But they gave Chelsea, who are a title contender, big troubles this morning, which obviously Sam Kerr only just scored in the 86th minute, I think, to win that game. CJ Bott, again, like that game against Liverpool was a bit different because they had her sitting a little bit deeper. It was more like covering in the midfield rather than pushing forward. They didn't want to get counterattacked by Liverpool. It was definitely a game plan thing. But we have seen her in a lot of these games pushing well forward, swinging in crosses. And I would not be surprised if the football ferns consider using her as a right midfielder instead of a right defender. She's a starting 11 player regardless. She's one of their best players. But looking at some of the stuff in the WSL, wouldn't be surprised if she is also a bit of an attacking solution for that team. Play her at right mid, play Ellie Riley at right back, which is where she's played a lot of her games. She's normally a left back, but she's played a lot of games in the NWSL this year there. And then chuck a little bit of Michaela Foster at left back for the set piece options. And, that might not be the worst combination in terms of finding a little bit of creativity, which interestingly enough might be the kind of there might be a parallel that we talk about when we discuss this Wellington Phoenix finals game preview as well in the coming minutes.
Right now, Wellington Phoenix, they're playing Adelaide on Friday night. Adelaide finished the season in 4th. 11 wins, 8 draws, 7 losses. The Wellington Phoenix finished 6th. 9 wins, 8 draws, 9 losses. And the Wellington Phoenix got this spot thanks to a vintage, a classic 1-0 win with Oscar Zavada scoring the 1 goal. Now that seems like a quintessential Wellington Phoenix recipe this season. You've told me Zawada's never going to score more than 1 goal, but he's pretty good to score 1 goal, and doesn't look like anyone else is going to score any goals. Now, I didn't actually watch that game, so coming into this Adelaide game, is someone else capable of scoring goals, or are we just looking for Mr. Zavada to score a goal and hope that is good enough? Because we've also talked a lot about the Wellington Phoenix defense. So the first question, the question 1A, is how the Wellington Phoenix scoring goals, if it's just 1 goal from Zavada, if it's more goals from other players, what's doing there based on the 1-0 win you saw last weekend. But also, there was a 1-0 win, so I'm assuming there was some sort of defensive solidarity to get a clean sheet. Is that repeatable against an Adelaide team who, let me just check, they've scored 43 goals. Wellington Phoenix have scored 39. Adelaide scored 53 goals, and they are one of 3 teams to score over 50 goals. So that just tells me straight away, I don't think the Wellington Phoenix are keeping a clean sheet against Adelaide. So I'm not sure about that defensive line, but these are 2 themes we've talked about all season. Where are the goals coming from? Why do they poo their pants in front of goal? Who knows? Defensively, it seems like there's a real solid, funky defensive unit on offer. We talk a lot about Callan Elliott, Sam Sutton, Tim Payne, and those Aussies, Wooten and Laws, neither of whom really... They're not Cole McConchy. They don't fill me with a lot of trust. That's a key takeaway. So I'm not confident that the Wellington Phoenix can keep a clean sheet or just concede 1 goal. It's a bit of a hodgepodge of ideas to throw at you ahead of this game, but how do you digest my fluff there?
Well, I think I used the word hodgepodge in my preview as well.
Bang, bang.
Which is a weird coincidence. Very weird coincidence. But I mean, have you got the table in front of you? Is that where you're getting the stats from? You mentioned Adelaide scoring however many goals they scored. Have you got their goals against as well?
46.
And have you where does that rank across the rest of the top 6?
The worst.
There you go.
And it's,
Um,
to be fair, it is one more than the Wellington Phoenix.
that is true, but
So the
it
only
wasn't a couple weeks ago.
the only teams, just for context, the only teams conceding more than 40 goals in the top six are the Wellington Phoenix and Adelaide United. The difference between the two teams is that Adelaide have scored 14 more goals than the Wellington Phoenix.
Yes, but Adelaide's last two results have been a 4-4 draw against Perth and a 4-1 loss to Central Coast. So they've conceded 8 goals in their last 2 games. They haven't won any of their last 4. So they're 2 draws and 2 losses in their recent form. Phoenix are coming off a win. It was a very gritty win, shall we say. It wasn't a very glamorous one, but they did what they needed to do. I went into the preview thinking, okay, well, let's just try find some notes of optimism because we're happy to be here. Maybe they can do something cool. We're just glad they didn't completely capitulate and miss the top 6, really. We'll see what happens in the thing. And then the more I wrote about it, the more I found, okay, well, there's a little interesting avenue there. There's a little bit of positivity. And I found quite a few of them. And one of them is that Adelaide's recent form hasn't been good. One is that they've been conceding a lot of goals. One is that although they lost 5-1 to Adelaide about a month ago, a little bit more, just before the international break, they lost 5-1 to Adelaide. The Phoenix actually won the XG rankings in that game. So they arguably, based on the XG, they should have probably won about 3-2. Now, that's because Costa Barbarouses missed a wide open goal. It's because Jan Saas kicked one straight at the goalkeeper. It's because they're just a couple of very good saves from old mate Gauchi. They're Phoenix just missing chances as they do. It's also because Adelaide just scored some second ago. Goals.
They pooed their pants in front of goal. Like that, everything you just said,
and they did that against Adelaide. Yeah, that game more than ever before. But maybe this will be the game it doesn't happen. The fact is, to your 1A question, like who's going to score outside of Zapata based on evidence through the season? Probably no one. Like it's probably just going to be the one standard postman delivers goal from Oscar Zapata, and no one else is going to contribute. But maybe they'll get lucky. Maybe they'll win a penalty like they did in that previous game and Alex Rufus scored it. Maybe they'll, a Barbarouses shot will deflect in or David Ball or something like that. These guys have been missing chances over and over and over. But you can't miss everyone, surely. You might just get lucky. But then the other thing is Adelaide are going to give them opportunities because Adelaide's defense isn't that good. They're pretty leaky themselves. They're built as a team that will score a lot of goals and then also concede a few, but they'll score more. The trick is to try find a way to contain Craig Goodwin in particular. I don't like one of the worst parts of this matchup is that they're quite good from set pieces and we're not good at defending set pieces. That's the problem. I think when they lost 5-1, they were 3-0 down and the 3 goals all from crosses. Adelaide crossed the ball more than anyone else, which is probably why I think you'll get Wood and Payne starting at centre back rather than Josh Laws. And Scott Wooden had a really good game against MacArthur. I thought it was the best we've seen from him in quite a while. Actual defensive centre backery on a level with what you expect from an import, which he hasn't been doing for a lot of this season. It wasn't Stephen Taylor level import stuff, but it was Scott Wooden level import stuff. That's what they're going to need against Adelaide as well. Going to have to be careful with Callan Elliott. I think Callan Elliott on Goodwin's side can't really afford to push forward too much because their first 3 goals were all conceded from crosses, one from a corner, one from a free kick, one from open play in that game. But the other 2 were conceded on the counter-attack, both running in behind on their left side behind Callan Elliott because the Phoenix were pushing forward trying to find goals and left themselves exposed at the back. So you can't be doing that. But, there's a few interesting stylistic things there because if they can make the tweaks they need to contain Adelaide even if they just, I don't know if they keep a clean sheet, but if you don't let them score 2, 3, 4, 5 goals, you can back yourself to maybe put away a couple extra chances. If you get lucky, they are the underdogs. They're away from home. No one's really got any expectations on the Phoenix. That's the thing in their favor as far as I'm concerned. Because frankly, when they've been playing with expectations lately, they haven't looked very good. They haven't handled that kind of mental aspect of the season very well. But there's no pressure on them this time. there's nothing to worry about. For a few of them, it'll be their last game for the Phoenix if they don't win. Like, you've got nothing to lose. I think that works out quite well in their favor, particularly against an Adelaide team that's had a couple shaky moments lately, conceded 8 goals in their last 2 games. Phoenix are going to need their strikers to, beyond Zavada, to give them more than they have been in the last month or two. That's beyond doubt. Like, if that doesn't happen, there's no point us even talking about the game, because they're just going to lose. Like, if they can't get that, they lose. There's nothing to talk about. So we have to talk on the assumption that they will. Then it's just like, can you put a couple of them away? It's the same thing we've said about them a lot recently, but we just need to see it happen. This is the time. Big players step up in finals games. David Ball's very experienced. Costa Barbarousa's very experienced. Bozidar Kraev, a little bit less experienced, but he's 24, 25 years old, and he's an import who's played at a good level, and he's played international football as well. These guys are good enough for this occasion. And the one other thing I'll say is that MacArthur win was quite sneaky in a few ways, because we saw quite a different Phoenix team. It was a very pragmatic performance. They played like looking for early outlets going forward. They didn't try to keep possession, particularly in the first half, the way they normally do. And this was my stat on the variety show on Tuesday, was the 8 games in which MacArthur have kept the highest figures of possession and throughout the season, they've lost 7 of them. Like, they're just a team that loses when they have more of the ball, because they don't know how to break down set defenses. Phoenix actually, curiously enough, have quite a good record when they keep considerably less possession than their opponent. And I wonder if we might see a bit more of that from them, rather than trying to be the standard of Tally team. Like, it was just a matter, against MacArthur, it was just a matter of get the job done, whatever it takes. Against Adelaide, it would be a little bit more of a tactical flex, but I wonder if we won't see that, like them trying to play a bit more counter-attacky rather than the slow, patient build-up stuff that we normally get from an Ufuk Talay team. Because I think there's a little, let's just say, I think that might be something that could be, that could work out nicely in their favor with this particular matchup. I think there's something to be, what's the word? Something to be gained from that.
Speaking of underdogs, the Warriors take on the Penrith Panthers in the NRL, and this has been a tough period of games for the Warriors. Storm, Roosters, Panthers. Completely realistic that the Warriors will lose all 3 of those games, especially considering the Panthers were defeated by the Tigers last weekend, and they have James Fisher-Harris returning to their team. So they've got that bounce back factor. Losing to the Tigers, obviously super embarrassing. Respect to the Kiwi-NRL Tigers. But also you've got James Fisher-Harris returning. It's going to be bloody tough for the Warriors to get a win there. Interestingly, the Warriors lost to the Roosters and they were kept to 0. And watching that game and digesting it, it makes so much sense as to why the Warriors were kept to 0. Because the Roosters forward pack, if coming into that game, just looking at the blokes named, that Roosters forward pack was bloke for bloke, by far the better forward pack than the Warriors forward pack. And Trent Robinson's a really good coach. And so what happens is Brandon Smith leaves the field, and then Victor Radley is defending at number 9. And that is a very intense, professional defensive unit. Lindsay Collins, the Butcher brothers, Egan Butcher, Nat Butcher, Satili Tupouniua, Angus Crichton, Victor Radley. And also, why is Joey Manu playing 6? Well, it's as much to do with getting Joey Manu more footy as it is to do with defense. Because if you've got Luke Keary and Sam Walker in the defensive line, you've got 2 little blokes you can aim at. If one of those is Joey Manu, well, he's bigger than most people on the NRL field, so you're not going to target him. And because the Roosters, what they do, condense the defensive line, wet conditions, load up the middle of the field, get 3 and 4 blokes into tackles, play the ball down, then that allows Luke Keary to read what is happening and to rush up. So you can't target Luke Keary, because he's rushing up, because he can see the play, because everything's so slow through the middle. And when you're thinking about the referee, that is an issue, as all NRL refs are, as all sports refs are. That is an issue that is amplified when you're not winning the little battles in a game. So the Warriors
100%.
were not dominating the middle of the field. And sure, the referee was a referee. Like some of the stuff, I don't know what the ref was watching, but you can say that for every game. And the team that's on the bad end of those decisions is usually the team that is losing the ruck. In the case of rugby league, in the case of football, it might be you're not winning the 50-50 balls, and then the ref is making decisions. It's just a weird sporting magical thing where the flow of the game is hand in hand with the ref's good decisions or bad decisions. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but it is just how it is. And that happened to the Warriors, but the Roosters, that was a great Roosters performance. They made a few defensive moves to really dominate that game. And another key aspect we've talked a lot about all season long with the Warriors is their passing. When Tohu Harris plays, he might have more than 20 passes as a lock forward. Adam Whenua had 5 passes against the Roosters. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak is the third choice fullback. So it's going to be hard to win an NRL game against the Roosters with your third choice fullback for starters. But he also doesn't pass because he's a winger. Whereas Shans Nickel-Klokstad, he's going to have more than 10 passes, and Dallin Watene-Zelezniak only had 5 against the Roosters. I ran some stats, and yeah, it was raining against the Roosters, but the Warriors still threw as many passes as they had done in other wet weather games, as just same zone as they had for the number of passes as previous games. So it wasn't like they passed less, but the important passes that help set up your attack, passing middle forwards, Tohu Harris, and a bit of quality passing in the fullback role where you can pass both directions with intuition and instinct. So they are notable inclusions, but again, I don't know if those inclusions are going to help the Warriors defeat the Panthers. But don't go overboard with these losses. Like, the Warriors didn't score any points against the Roosters. Yeah, because it's really tough to do that against that Roosters team with that Roosters coach. It's really tough to defeat the Panthers, for starters. Let alone when you're down on troops and stuff like that. You did have a debut for Dimitri Sifakula. Otahuhu Jr., thing to watch out for him is if you run into his shoulder, you're going to know about it. Like, his first tackle was just someone, I think it was like Angus Crichton running straight into him, and you just see like a big shoulder from Dimitri Sifakula. Not a shoulder charge like you saw from Satili Tupanuia. Shout out, Maris Jr. was fantastic. Blatant shoulder charge, missed by the referee. But Dimitri Sifakula, really strong shoulder. And just one last thing to throw up here. Dimitri Sifakula was promoted from a New South Wales Cup team that is first. And the New South Wales Cup team has been pretty interesting recently because their last 3 wins have come against fringe NRL forwards. Against the Sea Eagles, they had Ben Condon, Sean Kepi, Samuela Fainu. Kepi and Fainu, they're playing NRL. They're named to play NRL this week. They lost to the Warriors New South Wales Cup. Eels forwards, Ofeki Ogden, Makisi Makatoa, Jack Murchie, and Jeremiah Sia. They were dominated by the Warriors New South Wales Cup team, forward pack. The next week, Ogden and Makatoa were fantastic in the NRL, but they got dominated in New South Wales Cup. Roosters, they lost to the Warriors in New South Wales Cup, and they had Dylan Napa, Nathan Brown, Siwa Wong, Nofahu White. They were dominated by the Warriors New South Wales Cup forward pack. To be honest, the 17-year-old Salumiela Halasima, otherwise known as Leka Halasima, he's been the best player on the field, especially the last 2 games. He's been better than those NRL forwards, like straight up. You've also got Zion Mai'u, Isaiah Wagner, Tanner Stowers-Smith was promoted from SG Ball to New South Wales Cup. And you've got some really good older players. James Gavey, Patarika Vaivai, Michael Seo, Nicholas Halahilo is really good as well. Kailani Goings being promoted to Fringe NRL. So this, like, a lot, like, especially these young dudes, because you want to think about the prospects for the NRL team. These young dudes are going to battle with Dylan Napa, Nathan Brown, Ofahiki Ogden, Sean Kepe, and they're dominating them. So that's really interesting. That's where Sifakula's come from. And that's why Sifakula looks all good in the NRL, because he has been dominating fringe NRL forwards in New South Wales Cup. That also puts some context around Leka Halasima, who is absolutely ridiculous. What happened in that New South Wales Cup game was he was middle forward, dominating Dylan Napa, Siwa Wong, who was one of the trendiest prospects in the NRL. But then Geronimo Doyle goes off injured. Ben Farr moves from centre to fullback, and so Leka Halasima moves from middle forward to centre. It's ridiculous. He's really good at rugby league. Shout out to him.
Yeah, is that? I mean, you got to be careful with the young dudes and pushing them too far. Is that? He's obviously a fellow who's got, you know, one of the top prodigies in the Warrior system right now. Is that this year too soon to be thinking about potential like dispensations and sneaking an NRL debut in there, or is it more see how it comes kind of thing? Because you also can't, like, as I say, you can't rush the young players too much. I found a bit about this when Millie Clegg was getting a lot of buzz for the Wellington Phoenix team, and then people were saying, like, well, chuck her straight in, like, she should be starting for the Football Ferns. Like, no, she shouldn't be starting for the Football Ferns. She should maybe be getting into a squad and experiencing experiencing a tour and maybe a debut off the bench. Exactly what happened, by the way, at the first opportunity after the season. But, like, let's take things one step at a time and not skip things. But is that, I don't know, is that a possibility this year?
It's definitely a possibility. They'll probably put Zion Mai'u ahead of him. He's played every New South Wales Cup game, and he's been a starting prop dominating every game. So it's like Sifakula, Zion Mai'u, and then you'll probably get to Halasima. I think Halasima is ahead of Isaiah Wagner, but like the easiest way to say it is like, so Siwa Wong played everything except NRL last year. He's known as one of the best young forward prospects in the NRL. He's from Auckland, went to Mount Albert Grammar. The Roosters brought him over. I don't say it lightly when, like, Leka Halasima might be one of the best players in New South Wales Cup. So, like, whether that's NRL this year or not, it doesn't matter. He's just really good. And hope, like, the best case scenario is he doesn't play NRL because the Warriors don't need him.
Yeah, sure.
Like, Sifakula is only playing now because, like, you've gone through a period where there's no Mitchell Barnett. Neokore's in and out. Tohu Harris didn't play last week, so then Sifakula plays. Like, the Warriors are going through a lot of injury and adversity, which helps frame this stint of games. It's not just you're playing the three best teams of the last, like, 3 decades. You're doing it with injuries and suspensions down on troops, and, like, Tamaita Martin hasn't played recently. Mitchell Barnett hasn't played recently, so on and so forth. And hopefully, best case scenario is the Warriors don't need to go that deep. And Leka Halasima, because at the start of the season, it was just like Tom Alley. Yeah, big Tom Alley. He's our secret dominating force. Well, now Sifakula's already played NRL. Leka Halasima's already one of the best New South Wales Cup players. Like, I'm going deep in the mangroves again. Like that. What's
it's
that?
Always a nice stroll.
Is that Kiwi song? That cool me down, cool me down, cool me down. No.
Yeah, I need more information to.
It's just a song that says like "cool me down," and I need to be cooled down from the Kiwi-NRL mangroves because it's hot and humid in the mangroves of the Kiwi-NRL team. Big up the niche cage, big up the niche cast. Big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful.